You dress
Welcome back.
appropriately
You're
for the
listening to
conversation.
Chat with Women, and I'm Pam.
And I'm Rochelle.
And we are speaking with Dr. Pepper Schwartz this morning about AARP and sex. What a great combination. So, Pepper, you said there is a new AARP sex study out. So tell us about that.
Well, AARP has been putting together a national sex study since 1999. There was one in 1999, 2004, and now 2009. So we can do some comparisons as well as what we're talking about. And so this is a national random study for people 45, till forever. And we look at what people are doing, how it's affecting them, how it's changed if in any ways over the last since 1999. And we'll do this every 4 or 5 years. It's a great study. I consulted on its construction, but because they had been doing it before I got there and it had to be comparable, there wasn't that much change that we could do. So one headline is that while we're getting much more liberal, people in their 45 and above have become very much influenced by the generations below them as well. And of course, this is the baby boom generation, big chunk of it. So they are very liberal about whether or not people, for example, should have sex without being married. Before marriage, if they get divorced, after marriage. That's changed from a majority against it to only about 20% who think it's bad having sex without being married. So, I mean, that's a huge cultural change. And it tells you a lot about the age group. I mean, these are not their grandmothers. They are different. One problem is that even though they're getting more liberal, that they've been very much affected by the economy. There's less sex going on than there was in 2004 and 1999.
Oh, because we're all scared and angry. And
stress. Stress is the enemy. Mm-hmm. Stress, when people, the number one thing that people, who are mature age say that gets in the way of their sex life, and the one they change the most is stress. The next one's health. And then there's some, the third one is literally the economy. They talked about it. But we looked at all the things between 2004 and 2009, and the only difference is a much worse economy. There's no reason we should be having less sex and enjoying it less. Now, on the other hand, people, the vast majority, I think 84% and 2/3 of the women of this age group, of this 45 and older, say that sex is very important for their quality of life. So it's not that people don't want and consider it important. It's just that there's lots of things that get in between them and that. Now, that's not entirely true for one part of the study. And we oversample this group to get better information of them. And now I say, if you really want a great sex life, the best thing you should do is be Hispanic. Might be late for you.
Really? Really?
Well, my ex-husband was Spanish.
Okay.
And he was. Okay.
Okay.
Why
well,
is
it's culturally.
that?
Culturally,
Really?
it's really funny. I mean, on the one hand, there's, it's heavily Catholic, a Hispanic culture. And there is a larger group of people who are Hispanic than others that say sex should only be for reproduction. But that's like 12% versus 6%. Right. So it's still a small minority of the Hispanics. For the most part, the Hispanic part of our sample said they like sex more, they do it more, it's more important to them. And so I looked into their data and say, well, so what's powering them? What in their culture is giving them this advantage? And I noticed that they're much more likely to say their partner's romantic, that their partner brings them flowers or gives them an occasional gift. They are more likely to have date night, and they're more likely and much more likely to say their partner is sensitive and listens to what they say.
Well, those are all, isn't that what we all want? If that is all there, of course I'm going to have sex.
Yeah, exactly.
And usually that's what's missing.
Yeah, it's not, it's not brain science.
It's sensitivity.
Right. I mean, if people understand, it's not, if you just do the things that I've just mentioned,
right. That's all you have
everything,
to do.
The desire will ratchet up. So hopefully people listening to that can think about it.
Well, you just heard it here on Chat
with
Women.
Gift.
You just heard it.
Flowers.
This is the key to the continuation of your marriage.
Success.
This is
Forget the 5 keys from Dr. Goldman.
Forget it.
These are the answers. These are the answers right here.
Well, let me tell you another thing from the study that I thought was fascinating. And that was when people did rank their sex lives about how much and how good it was, the people who were single in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, ranked their sex life higher than the married people. Now,
I know why.
Why?
Because they're getting treated. They're getting talked to. They're getting presents. When
well,
you're married, that goes
also,
away.
Well, are they also taking control of their life in that?
I think that they're probably are much more demands on them to be sexual because, you know, you don't have a commitment. This is going to be more the core of your relationship than, you know, visiting your grandchildren, etc. But I think it's an interesting thing to me, because I think you certainly both have really good points, is that married people really need to think about that stat and say, okay, what are we doing? What are we forgetting? What are we taking for granted? You know, what things could we do that single people who are dating do with one another that could give us the same benefits, right? Mm-hmm. Because it shouldn't be that way. I mean, here these people are sort of somewhat less committed or less stable than the married. The good news for single people over 50, of course, is that that's not a very sad picture. That's a good picture, you know?
That is a really good
a lot
one.
of people think, oh, my goodness, I'm older and I'm not married, and oh, my God, what it'll mean. But it doesn't have to be anything less satisfying than it was. In fact, if you work at it, it could be more satisfying. So I thought that was interesting. The biggest thing for people as they get older is that they need a partner. Huge difference in happiness in the study between people who don't have a partner and people who do. One of the things that makes me put on my, you know, perfectmatch.com dating hat and saying, go online, you know, find somebody. I just I have this really close friend, Dee, who lost her husband. I think I mentioned her before, that she was out dating last time I was here. Found somebody, but they had too long a commute, didn't work. Now she's met the man of her life. She said to me, quote, he's everything I ever could have hoped for. He's everything I put on my list. They're now a couple. She's 82 and he's older.
Oh, you know, I love those stories.
We met her.
You met me. You met her at my party.
Yes,
That's
and
right.
She's
did meet her.
Lovely. I mean, if you could imagine this woman.
She looks 60.
She glows. She absolutely glows. First of all, she's got a marvelous mind. And she's very active socially, business. She's very active, well-rounded. But then she also brought up, because one of the things Pepper did at her party was, tell me what you're passionate about, which we loved. I loved it. Your party was fabulous. Anyway, so we all went around the room, and she came up with, well, I'm passionate about my life, and I'm passionate about this man that I've met. And we all went, oh my gosh.
It gives you hope.
It was fabulous. She's just inspiration.
Well, how'd she meet him? Was that online?
No, she'd met the guy before him online, but it was a fix-up from a friend.
She was.
You know?
So it was but to think, I think what I've said this to Rochelle for years now. It's like she doesn't get to retire. She's only in her 60s.
That's me.
And I think it's really important, because here's a great example of a woman who continues to build her life, and has a man in it as well. But she's not sitting home quitting.
I think passion is the key.
I agree.
Passion for what interests you, whether it's gardening or work,
whatever it is,
but a passion, and then to let that go to every part of your life. I look at Dee because we all need somebody ahead of us that's a model to say, okay, I don't have to be afraid of 82 if that's what it looks like.
That's
right?
exactly right.
And and sex is really important to that. Sex, affection, being touched. I mean, the people who kiss and hug in the AARP study are so much happier than the people who don't. We get skin hunger. We need to be enfolded.
You know, it feels so good when somebody puts their arm around you or caresses you. It's just very warm and inviting. I think as human beings, everybody needs it. You know, we feel that we're one. We feel that somebody cares for us. It's very important.
Well, and it's sad because these married couples that are married for 20, 30, 40 years, and the report is showing they're having less, so they're not as happy, and this isn't that difficult. Why can't we figure this out? Why can't there be more touching? And there is less touching when you're not happily married. Why would you touch? You don't want to talk to them. Why would you want to touch them?
Well, I think if you have a lot of anger in a relationship, you've got to deal with it.
True.
Because it's corrosive, it's toxic, it's toxic to your mind, it's toxic to your body. You'll produce cortisol, which we know is a toxic hormone. That's how we measure stress, you know, in terms of medical issues. Anger is one of those things that should be your diagnostic, like a high temperature. You know, get it treated. And then you can rebuild your sexual and emotional life, but you can't do anything if you're an angry person. And often you're angry with good reason. I mean, so it needs the thing that's causing the anger needs to be dealt with. I mean, it might need a third person. It might need a therapist. But the idea is to think of it as something that you can't live with because it's eating at your health.
right.
It's undermining everything that you think is important, whether it's your relationship or literally your heart and brain. You know, you put yourself at risk for a stroke or a heart attack with anger. You really do.
Oh, absolutely. We've heard that so many times, and you really do know that. You know you need to not be angry about anything, not just your relationship, but your career, or there could be people that have made you angry outside of your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whoever it is.
Sure.
Just anger can be caused from many different aspects. So, Pepper, what else are you working on now? You're the AARP spokesperson. Do you have a new book coming out?
Well, I'm working on a number of things. I just want to say one more thing about the AARP story before I talk about what else I'm doing, because there's one other thing I want to put out there for older single Americans, and that is that we had shocking statistics of the single and dating or looking. It was about 18 to 20% of our population who are single. They're not using condoms.
Oh.
12% of the men and 32% of the women use condoms always or usually. That's all. That's all. So, and while they have a low number of sexually transmitted disease, nonetheless, you have, 7% of the men have had hepatitis, 5 to 7% gonorrhea. I mean, it's not like there's no chance out there, and there's 1% of the population had HIV. So, just to put that in there, be responsible.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah, so
it's very important.
It really is. Okay, so what else am I doing?
What are you doing, Pepper?
Well, I'm working. I love to do things that take my relationship and sexuality expertise and put it in a new place, new area. So I've been doing a lot of romantic travel writing. I'm writing for Tripperati.com.
And Tripperati, what's that?
It's like Travelocity. It's like one of the travel
I've never
things.
heard of this place.
Well, go.
Tripperati. Spell it.
Tripperati.
Okay.
And is it a .com?
It's a .com.
Okay.
And one of the interesting things they do that's interesting to me, although I've just started writing with them, so I don't know them as well as somebody who's here as their spokesperson, but they match people up who, if they're looking for someone to travel with, and so they'll show all the different things. So, how do you like to travel? Where do you like to travel? Are you a person who wants to do one thing a day, or a person who wants to do 5 things a day? Would you be willing to X, Y, and Z? And then you can meet somebody, particularly for single people, or they have to, or they want to, share a stateroom or something on a cruise where you wouldn't want to have to pay for the whole thing.
Sure, because it's more expensive if you go alone. I think it's fabulous.
So that's a really nice part of them, and they have a good search engine, and so I was talking to them because they're thinking of doing something with AARP, and I said, well, let me write about romantic travel for you because it really matters to me, and I am working on a book on romantic travel with a guy named Peter Greenberg, who's well known in the area, and I just think it's too important when people go on that getaway together to have it screwed up by a bad place.
I know, and we've all had that.
And because your expectation and often your need is so high, the crash is that much lower. Right.
That's so true.
And you spend so much money in anticipation of this that it's really heart-wrenching.
Right.
So
I mean,
true.
For example, I was looking on the travel sites where the Bora Bora, no, it was the Moorea Intercontinental, I think, was giving these fabulous deals, and I was thinking if I didn't know, I would go for it. Well, the reason it's a fabulous deal right now on somebody's trip of a lifetime is they're doing construction there. It's a mess.
Oh, can you imagine?
I mean, so exactly. So I mean,
so Tripperati will tell
you. Well, I think in that case I have if I'm writing about it, they will. But if you do your research on a lot of these travel sites, don't just go and get whatever the group is, their deal of the moment. Research it. That's all. I really think romance is important, and I'm trying to help that there's sexuality, romance, connection, communication in about as many different areas as I can. I do work for a dating site, and I am working on books. I do a lot of stuff online. I don't seem to get tired of it.
We want to hear more about what you're doing, but we've got to take a quick break. So you're listening to Chat with Women, and we are with Dr. Pepper Schwartz, and we're delighted. So stand by. We'll be right back.